Hi, thanks everybody for inviting me here. I know I've only got 5 minutes, so you guys are going to have to get the Cliff Note version. But I will kind of hang out for questions about the issues. Anyway, I'm a local businessman. I'm an entrepreneur. I own a brokerage firm based in Westport, Connecticut. I have about 100 employees in 6 offices throughout the country. I started my company, by myself. I worked out of my 1-bedroom apartment in Los Angeles and built the company up. And I kind of achieved some degree of notoriety both here and abroad as being one of the few people in my profession, or probably few people in the world, who publicly foretold the economic events of 2008. I did it for years as a guest on various television shows. I used to be on CNBC about once a week. Starting in 2005, they were calling me Dr. Doom. I was on CNN, I was on Fox, I was on Bloomberg, basically laying out the economic collapse that I saw coming. I put a lot of my thoughts into a best-selling book that was published in February of 2007 called Crash Proof: How to Profit from the Coming Economic Collapse. And in that book, and in these television appearances, I laid out a case for why I thought our economy was literally a house of cards and was in danger of imploding. And unfortunately, I was right. But the reason that I'm now running for the United States Senate is because I believe the government is now in the process of laying the foundation for a far greater economic crisis that's going to hit this country most likely before 2012. It's possible it could happen after that date, but I think it's far more likely that it happens earlier. What very few people in Washington seem to understand is that the government is the source of our problems. The reason that I was able to predict the events of 2008, the credit crunch, the bankruptcy of Fannie and Freddie, the collapse of our lending institutions, the greatest recession since the Great Depression, was because I understood the impact government policy was having on distorting our economy. I understood how low interest rates by the Federal Reserve and legislation by Congress were creating the moral hazards and were force-feeding cheap credit into the economy. The reason that there was so much rampant speculation in Wall Street and so much consumption on Main Street was not because of greed. It was because of cheap money and moral hazard supplied by the U.S. government. You see, when you go back to the bursting of the NASDAQ bubble in the 1990s, the recession that we should have had in early 2000 never took place because, unfortunately, President Bush and Fed Chairman Alan Greenspan decided to stimulate the economy instead of allowing the recession to run its course. The recession actually would have been very helpful because the problem was not the recession, it was the phony boom that made the recession necessary to correct all those mistakes. So we had the government stimulus, and we stimulated our way into a housing bubble. That bubble was created by the government as an antidote to the 2001 recession. Unfortunately, the leaders in Washington, maybe the party is different. We have the Democrats in power now, but the prescription is the same. The government is doing the same thing. They're repeating the same mistakes that created that crisis. The monetary stimulus that we have under Ben Bernanke is now even bigger than what we had under Greenspan. And the stimulus that we're getting from Obama is much larger. We're celebrating the 1-year anniversary, we're not really celebrating, of the Obama stimulus. But that is about a year after the Bush stimulus. It was all the same concept, trying to stimulate the economy by running deficits, by spending money. But you can't grow an economy by growing the government. The only way you get economic growth is by shrinking government. The only real stimulus would be to cut government spending, to repeal regulations, and to restore sound money. Unfortunately, our leaders are not concerned about the long-term health of our economy. All they're thinking about is how can they get reelected. And that is the type of thinking that produced this crisis and that is laying the foundation for the next crisis. The real economic crisis, and the one I want to try to avoid, or at least be there when it happens so I can prevent the government from doing the wrong thing yet again, is the currency crisis. Because of all the money we're printing and all the money that we're borrowing, we're going to destroy the value of our money. And if people thought that the financial crisis was bad because they were worried about losing their money, wait till they see how much worse it is